So several of you have asked me about the levels of measurement. So you have nominal, it's ordinal, interval, ratio. These tend to be numbers. These tend to be not. Okay, it's not necessarily the case. Well, it is with these two, but these can be numbers, but they're usually not. So the way that you try to figure out what level something is you start here and you just see, can it advance to ordinal? Can it be considered ordered? If it can, then it's at least ordinal. Okay, these levels are ordinal if you want. So then if it's ordinal, you check if it's interval. And if it is interval, then it's better than ordinal. It's not ordinal, but it might be ratio. So if it is interval, then you check if it's ratio. When it stops fitting the rules, then you choose the one before. So nominal means that it names it. That's it. It just is a name. It's a category. It's a label. After you've figured out the name, you check for ordinal. Ordinal just means can be naturally ordered. There's some clear way that you have an increasing or decreasing set of labels. Then, if it can be ordered, you check if it's interval. Interval means I can subtract and it makes sense in context. Ratio means ratios make sense. Division makes sense. Division making sense turns out to be equivalent to there being a natural zero. Well, anyway, having a natural zero. So a natural zero is one that kind of everyone would agree with, which means the absence of whatever you're measuring. So the fact that if something weighs 0 pounds, that means it has no weight. That means that weight in pounds is ratio. Most numbers are ratio. It's very unusual for subtraction to make sense and division not, because almost always 0 means absence of. So I'm going to I just Googled and I'm going to use these examples by Courtney Taylor, statistics expert. So the teacher of a class of 3rd graders records the height of each student. So the variable in question is height. Because that's a number, a continuous measure of number, I'm going to go ahead and jump forward to interval. If I subtract, if one person is 6 foot and one person is 5'8", then I subtract and I say there's 4 inches. That's the difference when I subtract. Because you could legitimately say that the one person was 4 inches taller than the other, and that makes sense, then it's ratio. Now they're recording the eye color. So because that's not a number, I would just start at the bottom. Everything's nominal, so you can say it's at least nominal. And the question is it ordinal? Can I choose a natural order for eye colors? And the answer is no. Maybe you prefer blue eyes and somebody else prefers green. There's no obvious way to order eye color. So eye color is just nominal. It's just a category. There's no better, worse, bigger, smaller, nothing. Okay, now we have a letter grade. So we have A, B, C, probably D at that school, and F. Those are not numbers, so you can't subtract them. A minus C doesn't mean anything, but there is definitely an order. It is definitely better to get an A than to get a C, that's for sure. So it is ordinal. percentage each student got correct on the last science test, so now it's a grade. If one person got a 90 and one person got an 80, then they got 10 points more. So subtraction does make sense. If someone got a 70 and someone else got a 35, and I divide 70 by 35 and I get 2, the person with a 70 genuinely answered twice as many things correctly as the other one. So I get that 2, and it makes sense in context. Degrees Celsius. If it is 40 degrees one day and 30 degrees the next day, then it is 10 degrees Celsius less the second day. So subtraction does make sense. But if it's 40 degrees one day and 20 degrees the next day, you can't say it was twice as hot. The way to know, so it's interval, and the way to really know if it's interval is 0 degrees Celsius the absence of all heat? And the answer is no, it's not. If it's 0 degrees Celsius, water freezes, but life goes on. So it's not the absence of heat. It's just quite cold. It's the same thing for Fahrenheit. 0 is quite cold, but it's not a total absence of any heat. Now, with Kelvin, absolute 0 is 0 Kelvin. That means no heat, no movement, nothing. So 0 degrees Kelvin is the only 0 temperature that's genuinely a natural 0, meaning total absence of. So Celsius and Fahrenheit are both interval, because 100 degrees Fahrenheit isn't twice as hot as 50 degrees Fahrenheit. But Kelvin, it is. So Kelvin is actually ratio. Film critic lists the top 50 greatest movies of all time. So he's definitely giving them a name. He's also got an order. His number 1 is better than, number 2 is better than number 3, and so forth. But the difference between 1 and 2 might not be the same as the difference between 2 and 3, so subtracting really doesn't mean anything here. So that would just be ordinal. Most expensive cars. So assuming that they just list them as the number 1 most expensive is blah, the number 2 most expensive is blah, the number 3 most expensive is blah, then it's just ordinal, because the difference between 1 and 2 and the difference between 2 and 3 are not necessarily the same, so you shouldn't be subtracting. But if they list the prices, then it would be, in fact, ratio, because if one car is $100,000 and one car is $200,000, then the second one is twice as much as the first. But if it's $200,000, if the $200,000 one is number 5 and the $100,000 one is number 12, then you can't, that 7 doesn't mean anything in between. Jersey number can be listed in order. It doesn't mean anything about the players, but if they just list the jersey numbers, then jersey numbers are just a label. They don't indicate better or anything. So I would say that even though the numbers themselves you want to say, but I can subtract them, you can. Definitely 0 doesn't mean anything, but also the order of the jersey numbers doesn't matter, so that's actually just labels. Breeds of dogs. You can't say that one breed is just definitely better than another breed, so that's still just labels. There's no order to it. And the weights, though, you can say which dog weighs more or weighs less, and in fact, if one dog weighs 100 pounds and one weighs 50 pounds, then you can say that it weighs twice as much. So that one is ratio. Hopefully this clears up some of the confusion. If you guys still have questions, send me a message or find me.